Hey, 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 is my voice coming through? Is my voice coming through? I am Carl King. Let me bring down that background audio a little bit. Let's see, Mike Stone says, I recently met pre-COVID at one of my gigs. One of the members belongs to the Stars Academy. I have his phone number. Ah, well, maybe. Hey, Higgins is here. Higgins PDX. And Carence of Alabia is here. Today we're doing something a little bit different. Usually I do my guitar practice at this time. How's my audio coming through? Everybody good? Can you hear my incredible voice? All good, they say. This background audio is a little bit loud, it feels, for me in my headphones, but I can't tell out there. So at any point, just let me know if that needs to be adjusted. All right, we're doing something a little different today. I'm going to go a little bit slow to get started. I have some interesting books and documents to take a look at today from my collection. I have an interesting document here, a booklet that somebody passed on to me, and I'm going to finally investigate it today, live, on this thingy. In a little bit, I'm also going to open up a phone line to the public, and I will display the phone number down there on the screen, so you can call and discuss things. Hey there, Rob Jones. Rob Jones is with us. Who else we got with us? We've got Muscat Grape. That's great. I like Muscat Grape. This looks serious. Clarence is here. I heard he's working on a boat. We've got a regular show going here, folks. All right. Mike Stone says. Something I wanted to start out with just for fun is, oh, you know what? I'm going to have to do this. So this show I'm calling Out of This World. And I'm going to hide that open phones number for a moment. Because we're going to take a look at, I've got a camera right here. We're going to take a look at some of these things that I have. You like the whole vibe already? Okay, great. You know, I forgot to bring my water in here. I'll be right back, so just enjoy the cover of this book for a moment, and I'm going to show you something in it. Okay, here we go. This is a book from an entertaining comic, it says. Entertaining comic. I don't know if you can entirely see that. It'll probably go out of focus if I bring it up too close, so I can't really zoom in. But this is Weird Science from the EC Archives. And it's got a foreword by George Lucas. You worry there are not enough mics. Well, this right here is a camera that you're seeing on the wide. Do we need more mics? Is that all right? That's the main mic right there. You want me to have more mics? I mean, I can bring more mics into the shot and just put them on various stands. Hang a sock from them. It's kind of an inside joke. Well, there's some pretty cool artwork in here. This is a this is a throat clearing episode. I apologize. This little guy. It's cool artwork. Weird Science. Weird Science. This is issues 12 through 15 and 5 through 6. It's a little bit strange, isn't it? It's already getting weird. Chris Higgins prefers as many mics as available. Well, okay. Well, we'll get some more mics in here at some point. This is the introduction. Got some more good artwork. Okay, so here's a cool little story called Lost in the Microcosm. I think sound is good, but lots of microphones give an air of office. Give an air of office. Like on a podium, like a bunch of them all coming in, like I'm addressing the country. This is a cool story. Lost in the Microcosm. It's about this dude. He says, if you're ready, Professor Dreeben, I will dictate my story to you for the record. Yes, yes, proceed. By all means. Some time ago, and I won't read this entire thing, some time ago, exactly when, I cannot remember, I was working with a Professor Einstadt of Harlow University. You see, I was doing research with him under a biochemistry fellowship. I was completely absorbed in the work, and one day... So he's messing around with some work, and he eventually shrinks down a mouse. Shrinks it to a very tiny size. And then he says, "Ha! And still it grows yet smaller. What kind of strange world it now sees, we can only wildly guess." Gone. So it just kept shrinking. "I must go quickly, Carl, to spread the news. I leave you to shut off the compressor. I go to call Professor Hilton." That was the deadly mistake that started me off on this fantastic adventure. Professor Einstadt, in his haste, had left me to shut off the apparatus, with which I was not too familiar. Now let me see, how did the professor shut off the compressor? I think he closed the valve first and then shut off this... Oh no, good heavens, a leak in the pipe! So, this guy... accidentally, he starts shrinking. Hey, Spezix, thanks for showing up. So, now our protagonist is shrinking. And he says, the scientist says, "Carl, my poor boy, he's probably passed right through the flesh of my palm. God help you, Carl." And he's disappeared. "And so I left my world and my dimension. Now everything that I had once squinted at through powerful microscopes became huge and threatening. The flesh of the professor's palm was now a giant, wet, oozing labyrinths full of canals and passageway, throbbing with life." So now he's like in this guy's skin, and he just keeps falling. And it turns out, I was passing into a completely new dimension. I was now too small to feel gravity. Am I going to get you back into comics? Maybe so. I was now too small to feel gravity. I was floating in space amongst billions upon billions of molecules, each molecule similar to what I had known as a galaxy in space. Interesting. So each molecule was a disc-shaped cluster of lights held together by some mysterious force. Each light, I presumed, was an atom. So fascinated was I by this remarkable vision that I had forgotten about my plight. So he just keeps falling and falling through space now. Now he's in outer space because the atoms and molecules are now planets. As I shrunk still further, I was firmly gripped in the gravitational field of this strange planet. I waited and contracted patiently. Perhaps there were people here, life. So now he's a giant on this planet. So he's huge. He's got, mountains next to him. Then finally he sees some strange-looking tribesmen on horses. I mustn't frighten them away. "Hello," he says to them. And as my impressive size melted away, the horsemen became bolder, and they soon rode up close enough to speak. So he tries to talk to them, but then he shrinks more. He becomes tiny and tinier and disappears. And so it started once more, another cycle. First, I was no bigger than the grains of sand in the desert, grains that were now like boulders of glass. I just hope nobody pokes their finger into the sand and stirs it around. And then I was a bacteria-sized, battling, hungry protozoa. And boom, he's back in space again. Because now those cells that he's in the planet and the objects are now, he's in space. And he keeps falling and falling, and he lands in this next place, and he... How many terrible catastrophes I caused by an accidental sneeze or cough, I cannot tell. So... he just keeps falling through these wormholes, and... he discreetly landed in the western part of your country in the desert and quickly journeyed here to university to see if there was hope for me. But I now see that you are a comparatively crude civilization and are still unprepared to solve your own problems, much less mine. No! No, there is no more time. I'm shrinking into the wood of this chair. Somewhere in there I will be saved. Goodbye, Professor Drieben. He's gone. I even doubt my senses that he was here. Can it be? Can it be that this Earth is just a puny world within a world, all somewhere within an atom, in the flesh of some professor's palm? And in this country, this United States, still a crude civilization compared to what exists in the infinite cosmos. Brr, looks like it's going to rain. I think I'll get to bed and sleep this whole thing off. So, tons of stories like that. Tons of good stuff. Look at this great artwork. All like from the 1950s, I think. 1950 and 1951. A whole collection of these stories. Let's see who we've got on the chat here. Perhaps our galaxies are molecules for some other being's existence. We may never know, Michael Stone Drum says. Hold on, I'm gonna go drop some acid. I'll be right back, he says. Super cool, good stuff. Alright everybody, now that we're warmed up with a nice little lighthearted story, I want to move on to a sort of handbook that was given to me by someone I don't believe I've actually met. He actually mailed it to me. And I think he's listening to this right now. And that is the Mufon Field Investigator's Manual. Has anyone ever heard of this? Mufon stands for Mutual UFO Network. And this is what they give to their investigators to go out when they are interviewing people to determine, well, to log the information and ask the correct types of questions to find out all of the information they can get from the witness. How have you not seen this, sir? Mike Stone says. So we're going to take a look at this. I will add that... did the music just stop completely, or is it going to come back? What happened? Are they listening to us now? Apparently the looping is not working on this, so... Oh, there's a gap. There's a gap at the end. Okay, there we go. I was unaware that there was music. Hear that in the background? Do you hear? Does anybody hear it? Can you hear it? Ah, now I hear it. Okay, good. I will add that I have some experience with Mufon, because back in around 2002, I think, I saw something. Maybe I'll tell that story in a little while. What did I see? What did I experience that sent me into such a panic that I would call Mufon and tell them I saw something I could not explain? And they sent an investigator out to my place, and we had a chat, and I think he even recorded the conversation, and he asked me tons of questions and logged it. And so I think it might be in their database somewhere if they still have one. Should I bring the music up a little bit? And also, can anyone tell me if they are a subscriber, like Speezix, who has subscribed to my feed? Do you now have the emote? Does that thing work? Let's go ahead and bring the music up just a little bit by request. Try that. I feel like I'm talking over it quite a bit. Otherwise I would have spammed that baby super hard, Spizik says. All right, let's take a look at this. Okay. Copyright 1983. So this is an old one. This is an old Mufon Field Investigator's Manual. Check it out. Dedicated to Dr. J. Allen Hynek from Project Blue Book. Anybody familiar with that? Anybody familiar? There's a TV show right now that's based on, it's called Project Blue Book, and it's about that guy. Okay, what do we got? No, no part of this document may be reproduced in any form. Well, this is the 3rd edition, and it's hereby dedicated to J. Allen Hynek, PhD, for his indefatigable efforts to disclose to the scientific and academic community that the UFO phenomenon represents new empirical observations of great potential value to mankind. All right, and this is printed in Missouri. So in the table of contents, we got an introduction. We've got the Code of Ethics. We've got establishing a reporting network. We've got the Field Investigators Kit. We've got questionnaire forms. We've got preparatory steps to UFO sighting investigation. Investigation of special cases. Writing the report. Photographic evidence. Investigation of entity cases. Reliability assessment of eyewitness testimony. What do we got here? Hey, Higgins has subscribed. Thank you very much, Higgins. Ironically, it looks published on a Xerox printer. Who replicated what, sirs? Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. Hypnosis as an investigative aid. Investigative radiation survey of the landing cases. The challenge of ufology, or ufology, by the Mutual UFO Network. Anyway, special acknowledgments. Great. I'm not going to go page by page, but we'll check out some of these things. Dr. Hynek was a former 22-year astronomical consultant to U.S. Air Force. Let's see. The purpose of this manual is to help provide you with such knowledge gained firsthand from those who have already been involved in UFO investigations for many years. Thank you for serving Mufon as a field investigator. Okay, objectives of the Code of Ethics. Let's check out the Code of Ethics. These are the tenets of the Code of Ethics. The investigator should always conduct him or herself as a scientific researcher, looking into each case as objectively as possible. The primary concern of the research should be to ascertain the truth. We got honesty, all exaggeration, mystification, or sensationalism is to be avoided in favor of an honest, sincere presentation of oneself and one's objectives. The investigator should not encourage delusional thinking, nor insist upon a narrow and dogmatic interpretation of the facts. False hope of fame or profit should not be used to get witnesses to talk. Okay? Let's see what else we got. I'm just going to flip through and we're going to see if anything jumps out at me. Training. Mailing list. This is a code of conduct for when you're on radio and TV, when you're lecturing. A person to utilize CB and or ham radio for local communication. I like that. Necessary equipment. You should have an identification card, questionnaire forms, investigator's manual, a compass, a good quality compass. Does anyone out there have a good quality compass? I know one comes in the iPhone, but I don't know if that's really something you want to depend on. You probably want an analog good quality compass because you might, Well, even those could be thrown off, but you could always see them behaving strangely, at least in your hand, if there's some strange magnetism happening at one of the sites. Carence says, when you get up to the pencil drawings of the different kinds of reported alien entities, it's almost laughable. It looks like you could use a few of those on your cartoon. Well, we're going to get there. Area maps. You should have a star finder. I don't have an analog star finder. I don't know if anyone out there has an analog star finder. Sample containers in case you find any samples that you want to bring back. A farmer's almanac. I don't have one of those at all. A magnifying glass. You should also have string. I don't know why you want string. And a knife and also tweezers. Tweezers are good for if you get any splinters when you're in the woods looking for aliens. Now that's the necessary equipment. Absolutely necessary. The desirable equipment, this is desirable, to have a supply of tent stakes. And a shovel. And a disposable polyethylene glove. 100-foot steel tape. Not bad. A Zipatone color chart. I don't know that one. Does anyone have a Zipatone color chart handy? Paraffin or plaster of Paris. I guess if you wanted to make a mold, if you found some tracks. And then there's optional equipment. Contacting the witness. Inquisition. First, obtain the witness's full name, address, phone number, etc. Ask the witness what the apparent size of the object was if it were placed in the sky alongside a full moon. That sounds like a familiar question. I feel like I was asked that when the investigator came to talk to me. It's a good question. How much smaller or larger than the full moon would it be? Next, attempt to obtain a rough estimate of the object's real size, shape, color, distance, and altitude. Find out the approximate direction that the witness was looking while observing the object and what direction it was moving. Often the witness will know where the sun rises, etc. Okay, let's move this along. Interviewing how to dress. I wonder if you're supposed to... It says generally speaking, however, it is best to be neat and reasonably well dressed. A suit with shirt and tie for well-educated intellectual witnesses, plain slacks and sport shirt for suburbanites, and older work clothes for the rural areas. Some of those if you're one of those city folk that shows up, like Dr. Hynek did in Project Blue Book when he would go to investigate more rural areas, he would often encounter, people coming out with their shotguns and asking what he's doing there. It's wise always to clearly display your identification card. This has details on getting a verbal account, a written account. Oh, here's some questions. Here are some of the questions you can ask people when interviewing them and investigating. Do you read about UFOs in the available books and bulletins? How about me? Do I read about UFOs in the available books and bulletins? I haven't read a bulletin in a while. Of any sort. Unless you consider the internet one very large bulletin. The witness may be exposed if he or she refers to pertinent UFO publications later on. What do you think UFOs could be in order of probability? Talking of spaceships, might indicate the extent of his reading on the subject. Why do you think UFOs are being seen now? That's a good question. Why now? Do you plan to, or why did you publicize your sighting? Perhaps we can run a little, start a survey. Should we try to do that? We can do a poll. We can run a poll on Twitch. I'm going to try to open up Twitch here. running a little bit slow. Let's go to my stream manager. Creator dashboard. Okay, we're in the stream manager. Let's go ahead and start. Where is it? I don't see it there. My chat. I don't see a way to run a poll. We did it last night. Do I have to? Manage your poll. Okay, let's add. Manage poll. Ah, poll ended. Okay, new poll. Have you ever seen a UFO or alien? Question. Yes. No. And we'll run it for 10 minutes. So there should be a poll starting up. Starting up on your screens there in the chat. Okay, here we go. Let's move through it. Name recognition. Have you ever heard of George Adamski is one of the questions that you're supposed to ask. If the answer is yes, determine the witness's attitude towards Adamski and his philosophy. Also, if the witness does know of Adamski, ask if he or she knows what Adamski is doing today. What is this guy up to? Does anyone know? Has anyone ever heard of this guy? I don't think I've ever been asked about him, but it sounds like a fun question to randomly walk up to someone and ask. Have you ever heard of George Adamski? If the subject reveals knowledge that Adamski died in 1965, it indicates some reading in the UFO literature which serves as a cross-check of question 1. If the witness does not recognize Adamski's name, try other contactees such as Dan Fry, George Van Tassel, etc. Wow. Dan says early happy birthday, and that we're all getting chips with the vaccine, and that social distancing is so that we're easier surveilled from space, and that it's all in the Bible. Hey, that's appropriate for this show, isn't it? All right, everybody doing good? Anybody ever heard of this George Adamski? This might require some additional research. Oh, here's another one. Have you ever heard of any of these names? Dr. Carl Sagan, Dr. Alan Hynek, Philip Glass, not Philip Glass, Stanton Friedman, Charles Berlitz, Eric von Daniken. We've got some of his books right up there. If the answer is yes to any of them, ask how they've heard the person's name. See, they're trying to find out, is this person a regular UFO kook who's wanting to be abducted and going and hoping that they will see a flying saucer and reading all of these books and panicking? Could this be their imagination running away with them? I myself have had a few unexplainable experiences, but I'll get to those eventually. How are we doing here on the stream? We are at about 35 minutes in. We're doing good. From Wikipedia, George Adamski was a Polish-American citizen and author who became widely known in ufology circles and to some degree in popular culture after he claimed to have photographed spaceships from other planets, met with friendly Nordic alien space brothers, and to have taken flights with them to the moon and other planets. Yes. Very good. I thought maybe this guy was George Adamski was like a double agent or something, or out there spreading propaganda against Mufon, or maybe he was in a competing organization. Maybe in Flufon. Environmental situation. Let's keep on moving. Additional witness check. More than one witness follow-up. Witness character check. It sounds like they really want to get to the bottom of finding out, does this person really seem legit and serious? Or do we think that there could be some things that lead us to believe that this person is making it up or imagining it? 4 basic points of character investigation. Community reputation. Information about a witness, moral character, honesty, and his other human relations can be obtained by briefly questioning some of his friends, neighbors, associates, and places of business. This should be done discreetly, but as an acknowledged part of the investigation of the UFO sighting. Example, I am an investigator from Mufon, and we're checking John Doe's UFO report and need to know something about his character. Can you tell us what kind of a person he or she is? Wouldn't that be interesting? If you reported a sighting to these guys, and then your mom gets a call, or your next door neighbor, they start getting a knock on the door to ask about you. Personality and habits, what are your attitudes? Radar check. What's this? The investigator will usually find that military radar sites will not cooperate in supplying radar track data on unidentified flying objects, but it might be worth a try. The FAA, however, may be cooperative. So we're seeing this from the investigator's point of view. Where's the poll? I want to take part. I thought I ran the poll. Is it not running? Do you not see it? I started the poll. It's there. Let's see what the results are so far. Oh, we have mostly no's. Power company check. If the object was observed hovering near or touching power lines, check with the local power company to determine whether or not any unusual anomalies occurred, such as abnormal power drain or surge, open circuit breakers, power outage. Wow. So at this point, let me try to start taking some random calls. I'm going to put this phone number on the screen. Let's go ahead and pop this up here and see if we can get... Let's see if we can get a caller and get this happening. If anyone wants to call, feel free to just call that number there and we'll try to make it happen. I'm going to turn the music down slightly because it might be hard to understand the callers. Okay. We're getting no calls. That's a quote from one of my albums. Feel free to call in and chat. That number should work correctly. If you try to get through and it doesn't work, please let me know. Now we are cooking with dilithium crystals, Mike Stone says. Very good. I love dilithium crystals. And crystals are another subject, aren't they? So here's the basic form, the basic questionnaire. We're only 29 pages into this thing, and we've already got the questionnaire, where you are asked to draw a simple sketch of the object. Please describe the incident as it happened. Be sure that your narrative includes the following. Where were you and what were you doing at the time? What made you first notice the object? What did you think the object was when you first noticed it? Describe your reactions and actions during and after sighting the object. Describe the object and its actions. How did you lose sight of the object? That's another good question. And that's all supposed to fit in here. Wow, now we've got check boxes. Did the object turn abruptly? Did it descend? Did it affect electricity, spin, flutter, blink, pulsate, appear solid, have fuzzy edges, affect human, affect animal, affect vehicle, land on ground, land in water, cast light, reflect light, communicate, glow, appear transparent? One of my experiences, which is questionable, it involves some transparency. Residual magnetism. The investigator should check metal objects in the immediate sighting area with a compass for residual magnetism. Items reported to have been directly affected, such as an automobile, should be examined for intense magnetic exposure. Anybody who hasn't spoken up or wants to say hi in the chat, feel free to type anything in there that you would like. And go ahead and, if anyone wants to try calling that number, even as a test, if Spezix or Michael Stone wants to call, we'll try to pipe you in and get this call happening. I'm not hearing any calls yet. Feel free to dial it up. Residual radiation, landing traces, anecdotal data, physical evidence, physical remains of alien entities. I'm too shy to call. That's all right. Don't worry about it. Ochre smuggler, not a problem. Oh, we're receiving a call. Let's try to get this call going on here. Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Oh, I hear you
Mr.
also.
Higgins.
Hey, Mr. Higgins, I hear you.
Am I live on the internet talking to people about UFOs?
You should be. Can everybody hear Mr. Higgins? Is everything working? Mr. Higgins, feel free to keep speaking.
Yes, I will continue speaking about the documents that have been revealed to me today on the internet.
Okay, let's hear about those documents.
They're really quite colorful. The typewriting is well done. I don't see any, the whiteout. I don't see any of that going on in this document.
I don't see any whiteout either.
That's kind of impressive, given... Well, actually, this could be word processed. Now that I look at it, this could be... I take it all back. It's probably
okay, but let's
processed.
consider this is from 1983, and...
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So how was what was your experience of typesetting back in '83?
Gosh, it would have been probably like the Text Instruments TI 99-4A user magazine, where you would subscribe to this thing somehow. I don't know. I didn't do it. I guess my parents did it or something. And you would get a thing kind of like this in the mail, except that it was page after page of BASIC code. And
Yes.
you would type the BASIC in on your home computer to get like a crappy Pac-Man, right?
Right.
But it looked a lot like this. This was, I also subscribed to enthusiast publications for aquarium
Right.
haver.
And there's a story about that too.
There's several stories about that. Yeah, I found that binder recently. I'm as late as the 90s, like 91 or whatever. It still looked just like this. I think they might have gone to double-sided, but
Yeah.
they were like 3-hole punch kind of deals, or they had the little brads that went through the holes. It was pretty cool.
There it is right there. We got those on here.
Yeah, and it was because you would take them. I remember this was kind of a thing. You'd take them and put them in your own binders, so you'd have all of the proceedings of the Society of Dorkosauruses or whatever.
Yeah, it looks like this one can be kind of
stuff.
updated over time. They can send you additional things to add in.
We changed out page 57 to remove the name of George so and so because he's
now suing us.
Right, some stuff's going on. Yeah, you could kind of fan edit this thing if you had to. How do we know it's legitimate? How do we know yours has not been modified? Is there any kind of
It could have been modified. I may have even just typed this all up last night.
Yeah,
I wouldn't trust. I wouldn't trust myself.
Which page is that on? Trusting yourself. Are you allowed to trust yourself in the interview?
Yeah.
If you're wearing the khakis, to talk to the squares.
Yeah. Am I dressed professionally enough? Hey,
Right.
could I while I have you on the line, I have some great questions that I could ask you actually about a topic that we've discussed in the past.
Great, go for it.
Okay. I have had many experiences. When I was around the age of 20, I had a lot of sleep paralysis.
Yes.
That also caused me what some people might say are just hallucinations.
Right.
And I had it multiple times a night, and it was becoming so extreme that I was experimenting with it, and I started to be able to, in this state, get up and walk around the room and interact with objects. At least that's what I believed at the time. So I know that you are technically an expert on sleep. I'm not saying that you're just good at sleeping. Well, you are good at sleeping, but you know a lot about sleep.
I almost wrote a book about this kind of stuff, but I ended up not doing it because I had read all the good books on it, and it turned out I was like, there's nothing that I can add to this except just, doing it again. So I know a fair amount about this. I don't know about the walking around part, but I can tell you, like, what I basically gather about sleep paralysis.
Yeah, tell us what you have learned about sleep paralysis in your research. You also were on NPR discussing something a little bit similar to this.
Yeah, I reported a story for This American Life about a guy with a side condition called cataplexy, which is associated with narcolepsy, and effectively all the sleep disorders are, I wouldn't say related to one another, but they're lumped together in a field of research. So when you go reading about one of them, you're going to run into people who have multiple things. And so this is one of the first things that came up was the issue of sleep paralysis, because it is very similar to someone who's having a cataplectic episode. So cataplexy is when you have this condition and you experience a serious emotion, like a major emotional stimulus, you lose conscious control over your body. The thing that happens during REM sleep happens to you while you're awake. So you go limp, but like if your eyes are open, you can still see things. And it's very upsetting, obviously, and it sort of depends on the person. I interviewed probably over a dozen people who had this in different amounts, but there's other stuff that happens. Like there was an example of a person who worked on Wall Street at like a very highly placed bank. I was interviewing this person in like 2009 or something, and it was like, I don't really want to say what the bank is, but this person would ride the subway to the job, and had noticed that there was like losing time was the thing that was happening. And so in order to try, and I don't want to try to identify this person because I don't think they ever revealed that this was happening. But what happened was, because the subway stops were just sequential and it was a routine route. But some days it was like totally normal, and other days, you just wake up way late, like after your stop, but with no conscious knowledge that you had missed anything. It was just a continuous seeming feeling. But anyway, this is sort of a tangent, but let's just get it over with. The way to self-diagnose it was the patient began to write things in a notebook by hand, like I am at stop X, I am at stop Y, whatever, timestamps. And then at some point it turned into, I'm not kidding, automatic writing. Like just nonsense gibberish. Like it wasn't really words. It was just like squiggles. And then it would just sort of trail off the page. I had seen these in a coffee shop. I was like, really? And it's like, yeah, here's my journal. Let me show you a couple examples. And so eventually this was like, put down to another kind of side symptom of that specific sleep disorder. But it was another example of a mistriggering of something that was supposed to happen in sleep. Okay, what does this have to do with sleep paralysis? Well, the hypothesis...
real quick, sleep paralysis, for anybody who hasn't experienced it, it is a crazy feeling of waking up from sleep and being unable to move at all, and it feels like electricity is pulsing through your body, and often people will report it feels that there is someone there looking at you or touching you or doing something, and like in your face. And this has gone back through history. There's been accounts of this. And it's been so go ahead with what you were going to say.
Well, no, I think it is important to say what that condition is, right? Because it actually is extremely common when you start to interview people about this. They're like, oh yeah, it is unlikely, I would say, that you would talk to people, like if you had 10 people in a room and you said, who here, you started describing this, it's like, it's as if you kind of wake up, but you can't move. Like you just can't summon the will to like move your arms, but you're like awake and you have your eyes open and you're like, and not always, but very often you're like, and something malevolent is up. Like there's a demon or like,
yep.
And there's a lot of theories that this is, because this is identified now, I think basically anthropologists are saying, okay, this might be an explanation for like witches stealing your baby or
vampires,
the succubus or whatever. Yeah, these things that come in the night, right? Because if we know today, and in the 50s and I guess 40s or whatever the sort of heyday of American UFO kind of abduction. I mean, I don't know. I think that maybe to the like 50s through even 80s, I guess, as a cultural thing. The idea is culturally that whatever the current thing, whatever the current other is responsible, is the malevolent entity in the room. So if you think witches, if you're in like Bavaria and it's the 1600s or something, you're like, well, maybe witches came to, mess with me in the night. If it's like, the 3rd century, you're like, maybe it's like the succubus or something has come to remove my vital essences or whatever. And if it's like the 50s and you're really freaked out about, eyes in the sky, you're like, well, okay, it's the Ufos have come to experiment on me or whatever. So in the people I talked to about this, it was common to report that they were like, yeah, I've had sleep paralysis, either from time to time, like a few times in their life. I have personally never, I don't remember if I have, but I've never experienced this, although I think I can imagine it. But it overlaps with that exact thing that happens, a cataplectic event where you can't consciously control your body. But it adds this layer of the malevolent figure, which my recollection is unclear why there would be a malevolence, right? Is that an invention of the human mind because I can't move? Something bad must be happening to me? Is that, in fact, that there is something malevolent happening to me? Is it... I don't know. Like, I don't know that is known or is knowable, really.
Why did we evolve to have that? Or is it just a misfiring of some other... Well, it is a misfiring because we're intended to be paralyzed during sleep so that we don't hurt ourselves and act out our dreams.
Right. And to be clear about that, like that's actually, it's absolutely, that's a biological thing that we know about, we understand now, finally, like as of the late 90s, right? This idea that we are intentionally REM sleeping ourselves into not, running while we're in bed or whatever. But that probably explains what automatic, or sleep paralysis and kind of that little bits of automatic behavior things are. But yeah, I don't know, and I don't think I ever talked to anybody who reported the ability to then operate while in that condition. I don't know if that's psychological or if that's a physical thing that happened, And again, it starts to raise the kind of questions that I think, ufologists or whatever are interested in, which is, did that really happen? Did you interpret something else that happened? So is there some mixture of the two? Did some singular traumatic event or whatever, or actual, contact event lead to thinking about it a lot, and then there being thoughts or dreams of other events? Like that's
we have
very hard to tease apart.
Yeah, and we've got some people in the chat who are reporting that yes, they've experienced this as well. What I experienced, there's an interesting thing that I found in a movie actually years later. They talked about sleep paralysis in this movie, and they described exactly what happened to me, which is very specific. The thing that I always notice when I would have that is that when I was up and walking around the room or interacting with objects, is I could never get the light switches to work or anything electrical to work. Like the lights, the light switches wouldn't work, and I would be in this state dealing with light switches, and like I could even get in my car and drive down the street in this state, but the headlights would not work, and the car, and the engine wouldn't. Anything electrical on the dashboard wouldn't work, and I don't know if the engine was working or not. And so in this movie, they talk about that exact thing, that people have this of like trying to operate light switches and they don't work.
Yeah, that's the lucid dreaming thing, right?
Right.
From Waking Life?
Yes, you got it.
Yeah, my recollection is that that's a test to see if you've arrived in the state of lucid dreaming.
Okay.
Right, like this idea is that you have entered the transitional zone between consciousness and dream state, right? Where, but you have some agency, like your conscious-ish mind is able to act and influence the dream. But there are these like theoretical tests. It's kind of like the totem test in Inception, right?
Right.
If you do this thing, it doesn't operate according to actual physics because you're not actually in a physics-based situation.
But why couldn't your mind imagine? Why couldn't your mind imagine what a light switch would do?
That doesn't make. Honestly, I don't think that makes logical sense, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like it would be any kind of absolute. It would seem to me that would have to be specific to the individual, if anything, right? Like, I mean, if you're able to simulate in your mind, like getting in a car and operating it and driving it, it doesn't make any sense to me that there would be like some weird, like, oh, except electricity doesn't work. Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? Like,
Right.
Your brain is very capable of getting you. If you're just in your brain, right? Then like, anyway, I don't see why that would be anything. But it does strike me as like a well understood or an understandable cultural thing. Especially if you're comparing, for instance, like a pre-electrical civilization, to a post-electrical one, right? So maybe the test, if you're in the early 1800s, might be like, I don't know, can you light a fire or something, or some such thing, right? Like, can you operate something? But anyway, like, I don't know, and I honestly think that's, to me, I think that the fascination of like ufology is that UFOs are not just aliens. For one thing, like, that's a really important point, is it's just things we don't know what that is in the sky, and I think that's completely plausible that there's a lot of things we don't know or what they are in the sky. Like, we don't spend a lot of energy trying to survey the sky, just like we don't spend a lot of energy trying to survey like the deep ocean. We're just not 100% sure what's there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, these sort of contact events and like alien, interactions and stuff, totally fascinating, because I do think obviously some of that has to be cultural, has to be like some product or, something that happens psychologically. It's not an actual event that occurred. But at the same time, like, I don't know. In the absence of evidence, like, I don't know. And so I think it's interesting to see stuff like what you're showing here, which is an attempt to gather evidence, which I think is what everybody's kind of hoping for, right? Like this hope to get, hope to be rigorous, right? About the idea that you can apply science to anything, right? As sort of a scientific process, or at least just a documented process. Like, interview the person while you're wearing these clothes and ask these kind of questions. And
yeah, I mean, it's such a detailed level of being careful,
Yeah, because you don't want to like contaminate the subject, except you definitely want to ask about this one dude, because like that's trouble or not or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, I don't know how to account for what you're talking about. And I also don't know specifically any technical reason why it would come and go. Like, I don't know why that happens, although I can say I have talked to people who are like, yeah, no, I had this, stretch of time, whether it was adolescence or whatever, where like this thing happened for a while and then it didn't,
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think that lends itself very much to people who have the like encounter stories, who are like, well, okay, I woke up, night after night and had this really clear experience, which might have been a dream or not, of like, something bad happening to me. And I would like to discuss this, right? So I think that's what leads you into the realm of all this stuff. And I also think that, the cultural, I think that one other thing that I used to think of in, let's say, the 90s was, kind of with, for example, Sasquatch, and other sorts of like things that are broadly understood to maybe exist.
For those who are just tuning in, this is Chris Higgins. He's an author and writer, and also a writer who does authoring. And he's talking about some of his expertise in the topic of sleep, in the subject of sleep and sleep paralysis. Just wanted to throw that in as a little bumper. Okay, go ahead.
For all all the new listeners.
Yeah.
But I mean, just to be clear, also I'm a nonfiction writer, so I'm a reporter essentially, and although I have written a little fiction, but that's a whole other deal. I think the other thing that's really notable is, we thought and actively discussed this concept, as late as the late 90s, which was, well, actually as late as the 2000s. We'd have way more pictures of Sasquatch if people just had cameras, because the idea of walking around with a camera was nuts. Nobody did it, it wasn't, I mean, like, I did it, you might have done it at times.
Right.
Like,
I remember you walking around with a camera. You had all that stuff, like in high school.
I had like a Walkman, and I had stuff hanging off.
Oh,
me, right?
yeah.
Like, it was like a tactical situation. But I had like guitar picks and 3 different gauges, like just in case. I had a capo. I always carry a capo. Like that's the real. I should stop at this point. But but the thing is, all of a sudden you have this transition, like around probably 2010-ish, when I would say the majority of normal adults are carrying around a relatively high fidelity camera at all times in their phone. And I don't think that, like, again, like, lack of evidence, doesn't disprove things. But, like, I'm not seeing an explosion of Sasquatch things.
Right.
But I think we did see a lot of examples of interesting, like, literal UFO things. Like, what the hell is that? And they pull out their phone and record some weird stuff floating in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And you have, like, in many cases, multiple angles of it now, right? And some of the stuff that, like, I think the Times has been, as kind of has the beat of the Tom DeLonghi and all that stuff of, like, okay, well, now we've declassified this footage that has been floating around that, we weren't sure if it was real or not. Well, yeah, no, it's real. Like fighter plane footage of chasing an odd object. I think that stuff is completely fascinating. And I would quit my punk rock band to investigate that if I had the dough, because anyway, why not? Right? It's also like one of the few things that I used to say, like, the only rational reason I can think of to want to be president is so you can find out that stuff. Like,
that's good.
First day, you'd be like, okay, look, I won the election. Like, tell me all the stuff. Like, just take me to the room. And I would be worried they'd be like, yeah, there's no stuff. Like, I got nothing.
Like, that would be a bummer.
Curse all this work.
They're probably like, you're actually not the president.
Right. They'd be like, actually, no, the real party, like, you actually have to become, like, super president. And you're like, no! How do I get that? And they're like, you can't.
That's very Scientology.
And, like, they replace you with Right, like a body double comes in, and that's who's president for the rest of your deal. And
right.
Yeah, it's such a bummer. So much work.
Right. Kind of reminds me of Cat's Cradle. Anyway, thank you for calling in, Mr. Higgins. Everybody check out Chris Higgins online. Go Google him and check out his website or whatever and go find him because he's an interesting guy.
chrishiggins.com and all of the great internets.
He's currently...
your phone line's working.
What's that?
Looks like your phone line is working. So,
okay, great.
Just so we know.
And also check out, pretty soon he's going to be he's working on a new documentary, which I am going to be a part of with the music. And that's going to be fun. So check that out. Look out for that. Yep,
you will hear about it here as well. So, all right, talk soon, Carl. Happy birthday soon.
All right, thanks a lot.
All right.
And that was Chris Higgins. Okay, we're back checking out this thing. Let's take a look at the chat and see what's going on over here. Several people that I know here are reporting various experiences they had. Like Rob Jones says, in my teens, I went to bed one evening and went asleep as normal under the blankets and had a dream of being surrounded by entities using a vacuum type machine on my chest with a neon light, and it felt cold. Woke up on top of the blankets, which were made like I hadn't been to bed. Lying 90 degrees across the bed with my legs and feet hanging over the edges of the bed. Really weird. I had something like that happen one time too, where I think I woke up in different clothes. Very strange. Michael Stone says, when I was 10 or 11, I stayed the night at my sister's apartment, and actually I did some sleepwalking a lot back then. I woke up fully clothed in her shower, running the water on me. My sister was very confused by my behavior. My pool company used to service Tom DeLonge's pool. I met him a couple times, but did not know about his UFO interest until much later, or I would have talked to him about it. Very good. So several people are reporting they've had these types of sleep paralysis experiences. Actually, I went to a convention when I was a teenager. This is the original book that started it all for me. Communion by Whitley Strieber. And it was a terrifying book when I was 13. And I read that and I saw that cover. There's nothing in the world that has ever scared me anywhere near as much as that book. And I've been in some scary situations, but this terrified me for probably 15 years. And this is the book that my sister casually handed me one day when I was at her house for like Thanksgiving or something, and I was bored. And she said, "Oh, I know a book you would like," and handed that to me. That was it. So I ended up meeting Whitley Strieber a few times, and I went to a convention, and he was there autographing books, and I was terrified to talk to him. I went up to him and I asked him about sleep paralysis. Or I asked him about that type of thing, and I wanted to know if that meant that aliens were, if I was being abducted. And he said, well, It's very difficult to distinguish between hypnagogic dreams, hypnagogic trances, and an actual experience. Anyway, Whitley Strieber, he's still around. He's doing stuff. We've got mutual friends, and I've talked to him a few times and gone to some private events. He's out here living in LA, so we occasionally run into him at small events. So, wild book. Here's the other book that really stood out to me, also by Whitley Strieber. The Secret School. His writing is so creepy, terrifying. Whether it's real or not, it is so interesting. And he makes all these predictions. He's just an incredible writer. Let's take a look at the chat. If anyone would like to call and do a call, give me a call at that number there and see. By the way, Devin Townsend, when I met him, I discovered he had a communion tattoo. Hey, we're getting our next caller. Let's see who we got. Hello, you were on the air. How you doing? Who's this?
Hey, Carl, it's Carence.
It's Carence. Welcome, Carence.
How you doing?
I don't think I've ever really talked to you on the phone or heard your voice. What's going on?
That's right. Yeah, we've tried to have lunch many times. It just never happened.
Yeah.
I wanted to clarify that Mufon investigator guide.
Yes.
Is legit. That is what they sent because I was very into it way back in the day. I have never seen anything that I couldn't explain myself because I am very skeptical.
Ah.
That's why I wanted to go that route.
So, okay, but what drew you into that specifically? Just being skeptical? Like, you're like, I don't believe in it. So, and I by the way, I'm just going to say, I'm an atheist and I don't believe in anything mystical, but I still like the topics. And I'm not angry if anybody else likes it. But I'm curious, why, as a skeptic, why did you become so interested in this specifically?
I had a cousin that I'm guessing I was around 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
They had a sighting in their backyard that was verified by a mail plane, and the sheriff had chased this UFO. So that's what really got me going.
Wait, it was verified by what?
So it was something they saw in their backyard, hovering in their backyard. They called the cops. They checked it out. It ended up being the sheriff in town saw it and tried to chase it as best he could.
Really?
It was also verified by a U.S. mail plane that happened to be flying overhead.
Okay.
Also saw this object, whatever it was. So that's what sparked my interest in that whole. Communion was the first real book I read on that, also with the abductions and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that really piqued my interest, and since then, I would say I tend to explain things away and realize that many things people see may be government programs that they just don't know about yet.
They could be, for sure. Have you checked out that new show, Project Blue Book?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, you saw the actual TV show?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. What did you think?
I love it. I love it. Like I said, I've been a fan of that kind of thing ever since I was 12. So I believe that there is that possibility. I believe 99.9% of what people see can be explained. And like your friend is a Mr. Higgins.
Yep.
Like he was saying, what you believe in can lend itself to you interpreting what you're seeing.
Right. We'll end up imposing our own understanding of reality of what we expect onto those situations when we see something that we can't explain.
Yep. And again, that's why I kind of went that path to try to figure out how can I investigate something like this and really pick it apart and see if there's anything to it.
Yeah. And that's some really concrete scientific stuff. It's very strict.
It is, but as you can see, it looks pretty like homemade, like hokey. When I received it way back in the day, I thought, really, this is it? This is your handbook?
Even back then you thought that.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. Well, I find it to be pretty interesting stuff, and I thank you for sending it to me.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I figured you'd be... I threw everything else I had away, but I figured that one would be something you might be interested in. Like I said, if you get up to the sketches of the reported aliens, it made me think of something that could be on that monster show.
Ah, yeah. Yeah, well, I'm going to get to that for sure. I'm going to flip to that stuff and show some of the other illustrations, because it reminds me of like the old style D&D art, where they didn't quite have professional artists doing some of that artwork, which I still think it's got a really cool vibe.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for, and I was able to build a whole episode around this today, so this is nice. Thank you for sending it.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to get back to my boat working, and you take some more callers.
Great. Enjoy your boat work.
We'll see you.
All right, see you later. Oh, that was fun. Nice little call. Mike Stone says he's also a skeptic, but unidentified, of course, does not equate to space aliens. So I do try and keep my imagination in check anytime I see something I do not have an explanation for. Just saying. Let's move on in this book a little bit. Let's see what else we can find. Here is the form for electrical magnetic cases. So what you want to do is you want to investigate the equipment and keep track of this. And there's all these check boxes. Is it a fixed piece of gear? Mobile? Portable? Receiver? Transmitter? This music is a little bit loud, in my opinion. But I do like that sound. Operating mode, AM, FM, VHF, UHF, station, frequency, voltage, 12 volts, 120 volts, 9 volts, AC, DC, line, generator, battery, other, engine data, number of cylinders, water-cooled, air-cooled. So imagine you go out to investigate a sighting and you got to fill out all of this stuff. Check out everything. Make sure it's all psychological effects. Relationship of UFO or entity to affected person. Was it indirect, apparent direct, actual direct, comments, animal effects, during and after, behavior of entities, torso, feet, hat, hood. Was there an entity at the window? I don't like the idea of in the middle of the night, if I were to look at the window and it's open and there's a face in the window. That would just terrify me. Let's see what else we got. Artifacts. Is it liquid, fibrous, rock, metal, slag, gas, ice? A gas artifact. Interesting. Did it appear abruptly? Did it maneuver? Did it change in quality? Here's an aerial sighting report. Sketch of object's apparent motion. Oh boy, there's a lot of stuff here. Ball lightning, that's a cool subject. Historical reports of apparent ball lightning indicate a variety of movement. Hovering, moving slowly through the air with or against the wind, moving at speeds estimated between 5 to 60 miles per hour. Higgins, my dad was working at a radio station, if I remember right, in West Virginia during an electrical storm. He was alone, on the air, the late-night DJ situation, 20-something post-Vietnam. Anyway, at some point, ball lightning entered the studio, floated across the room, and then continued outward, like it appeared to come in through a wall and out through a wall. I have an interview with him somewhere on that. Freaked him out real good. Crazy. Mirages. We got sun dogs and moon dogs. What are those? Has anyone ever seen a sun dog or a moon dog? I don't know that I've ever seen one. That is the reflection of either the sun or the moon from a layer of flat ice crystals in the atmosphere can cause a mock sun or mock moon to appear at a point adjacent to either the sun or the moon. Wow. Like a fake, only up dog. Oh yeah, nice. Okay, reflecting sunlight, St. Elmo's fire. What is St. Elmo's fire? Do we know? Or is it just a really good movie from the 80s? Anybody remember that song, St. Elmo's Fire? Oh, Higgins has seen a sundog. St. Elmo's Fire is an apparent flaming phenomenon, usually observed during electrical storms at prominent points on aircrafts. Ah! It is caused by the brush discharge of electricity in the air. This phenomenon could conceivably cause a UFO report if seen from a distance, but would be readily identifiable as a type of electrical discharge, not a glowing object, when observed at close range. Birds apparently can reflect sunlight. Unconventional advertising displays, hot air, blimps, fireworks, satellite re-entry, kites, weather balloons, hallucinations, psychic phenomenon. Concluding remarks. For those who are just joining us, we are checking out the Mufon. Let's try to rewind this sound effects thing. This music. There we go. We're checking out this Mufon Field Investigators Manual. And we're working our way through. Oh! Here are some identification star charts. So let's say that you are in, let's go to August. And if we want to find Sirius, it would rise at 5 a.m., I guess in the east. If we want to find Altair, you would only see it set at 5:45. How does that work? So it doesn't rise. It only sets. Interesting. I guess it's just... Huh. Okay, well, I'm no scientist, so I don't know what's going on. Here's a bright planet location chart between 1988 and 1993. So you would have this with you and you'd be able to reference, okay, let's say it's August. Venus. So you should be able, in 1988, you would be able to see Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. And they include these dial-a-map selectors where you can turn the small disk until the hour you want to observe matches the time of the month. The number of the map to use at this hour will appear in the window of the dial. If two numbers appear, either map may be used. So you're supposed to cut it out with scissors and stick them together. We've got a few of them. Here's some more star charts, in case you want to reference that and you're talking to a witness in 1983, and they say, I saw something in the sky. Well, maybe that was Pollux or Alphard. Here's a grid sheet. So if you're at a landing site, you can you create a grid. Maybe this is that thing where they walk. As you can see, they put a grid here on the ground to check each grid, I guess, to try to find samples, things I can take with you. What are we talking about here in the chat? Now we have an app for that. You woke up late at night to see a short, dark figure walk into your room and go to the corner. I remember fleeing to my parents' room in terror. I, of course, thought it to be a ghost or something similar back then, but I've had many experiences with hallucinations, especially in the peripheries of sleep periods, so of course. Higgins says, another flavor to this whole UFO thing is I've always wondered whether it's global or US-centric, as all I've ever bothered to look at is US stuff, but I wonder how and whether UFO stuff is a thing around the world. Star Tracker on Android is awesome. Yeah, we have an app to find something like that as well. Skyview, there you go. Muscat Grape uses Skyview often. Imprint. Stone samples. Sketch of site showing imprints or any ground marks. Oh, look at that. Look at that cool thing. What is that? That is a Brunton Pocket Transit from Soil Test. Comes with mounting head and tripod. Very light and portable. Photograph shows transit in position for use as a level. And here's someone doing something with some string. And this is a pocket penetrometer. Wow. For classification of soils or for determining pressure per square foot previously applied to soils. So if something stepped on it before, you could if something stepped on the soil, you could determine maybe how heavy the object was. Who have we got here? Richard Running Man. Many sightings in, well, you said the great at being able to, so perhaps we have a big corner on the UFO sighting market. That's very funny. Very funny, Michael Stone. Lightning strikes on soil. We're moving through this thing. First things, photographic evidence. Lens flares, film defects. It's orbs. It must be the orbs. Computer out. Okay, here's some technology. Was it 35 millimeter Polaroid 126 or other? State the ASA and manufacturing. Shutter speed, f-stop, time exposure, number of photographs taken. Okay, here we go. We're starting to get into the investigation of entity cases. Reports of strange beings, often humanoid, have been associated with UFO reports. In 1947, the first year of large-scale UFO sightings in the United States, there were 10 such reports. Over 30 years later, approximately 2,500 reports are on file. These probably constitute the tip of an iceberg of unreported cases. I need an orbs emote. Nice. We'll try to get that going. Okay, it says here underlined. Great care. Oh, let's start at the beginning of this paragraph. The monster reports generally describe tall, hairy beings similar to the reported ape-like Sasquatch. There you go. Or Bigfoot creatures of North America. For this reason, we refer to the beings in these reports as anthropoids. The investigators should be aware that this type of report has been increasing, especially in the eastern United States. Great care must be taken to separate anthropoid reports where no UFO is directly involved from those where UFOs are seen. In the vast majority of these cases, UFOs are not observed. Some of the reports, if valid, may very well be of Earth indigenous creatures. However, there are reports in which UFOs are circumstantially associated with anthropoid sightings. The appearance. The most important characteristic seems to be the height of the entities. 3 general classes are apparent. I'm going to guess small, medium, and large. Let's see what it is. In order of their observed frequency, dwarves, averaging around 3.5 feet in height. Normals, of standard or slightly shorter stature. And giants, of very tall, 7 to 8 feet height. And of course, you get an attack bonus when dealing with those giants. That's a little D&D joke. Not even a joke. Okay, here we go. Behavior. There are intentional encounters and unintentional encounters. There are abductions. Oh, here we go. Wait a minute, did I miss one? We did. Here we go. Occupant type 1. I think that's a pretty cool drawing. It has that early 80s style. He doesn't have his helmet on right now. They prefer Sasquatch apes, Michael Stone says. And by the way, I did say, hey there, Richard Running Man. RJ said, well, Rob Jones says, many sightings in South America, the video footage. Aliens? I don't know. Higgins wants his orbs emote. Ding. I've got orbs in my pants, Michael Stone says. Oh no. That's why he said they prefer Sasquatch apes. His head looks like a helmet. Zeke Piestrup's here? Dude could definitely get laid on the club scene. Nice suit. Okay. Let's take a look at this guy. This is the artist's rendition of a normal size entity. Occupant type 2. So I guess the most frequent type that's seen is this one. And then type 2, they will often see a more human type. And then type 3, these are least common, are these very long-armed hairy Chewbaccas. Keep your orbs to yourself, Zeke Pie says. Oh, here is the typical Pennsylvania creature, if you've ever wondered what the typical Pennsylvania creature looks like. If you've ever been to Pennsylvania and seen a creature, this is typical. If you have to stop for gas. It's a large anthropoid creature, sometimes referred to as Bigfoot, Yeti, or Sasquatch. It has apparent ears, a large nose, glowing red eyes, fang-like teeth, and extremely long arms. I'd say that looks like a werewolf to me. He just needs a little hat. And no genitals. God, some are from Looney Tunes. We're talking about this. Yeah, he needs like bigger shoulders. People? That's probably the highlight of this book. Those who haven't, who are just checking in, Zeke Pie, if you just showed up, this is the Mufon Field Investigators Manual from 1983. That's sent out to the investigators who go out to investigate when there's a sighting, and it's very detailed and strict and scientific. And this, you know, the pictures of the creatures are examples of what some of the witnesses might say they've seen. These are like the main categories. It's not saying that these are the creatures that people have seen. They're saying this is what people will claim that they've seen, the most common. They roam the valleys in Wales. You've seen a few. Skunk ape. Definitely werewolf vibes. Gold. Werewolf Eddie Munster on that one. It does look a bit like that. Evaluation of injuries. You can check for weight loss, urinary potassium, sodium, and chloride, urinary ketones, serum glucose chest x-ray, biopsies of skin lesions, serum cortisol, hypnosis as an investigative aid. Estimating the distance of a UFO. You got some math here. Measure angles something and something. I'm sure some of you know how to do math like that. I don't. How to make a copy of a tape recording. The following information is necessary to follow an analysis to be made at some future time of the master copy for validation purposes. Do not edit or record over any part of the master copy. Radiation survey of landing cases. Here are some of the meters that you can use for testing, for collecting information. Because, hey, if someone says a UFO landed in my backyard and it seems like, well, let's just find out if there's any radiation back there. And they talk about kind of moving around in these patterns to various situations. And here is the final challenge to ufology. What does that even mean? I don't know what that means. But there we are. Oh, and this is the letter to me that someone wrote. Very good. There it is. The Field Investigator's Manual. We went through that for an hour and a half. Would anyone like to give a call? Because we have an open phone line at the moment. I'm not totally familiar with the Serious Mystery, but I've seen the book, I think. In the meantime, I was talking about some of my favorite books on this topic. We got Communion by Whitley Strieber and Secret School by Whitley Strieber. My two favorite books by Whitley Strieber. Fascinating writing, whether or not you believe it. I happen to be an atheist, which is not incompatible with this stuff. And I don't tend to believe any sort of mystical type stuff. And I'm also not angry if anyone else does. So it's fine. It's not a problem. I'm not an angry atheist. Like some people I know, right? I've never heard of Lamb. What's Lamb? I've heard of Peter Lamborn Wilson. That's interesting too. So here's what I was naming the show after. Out of This World, an illustrated library of the bizarre and extraordinary. And remember, I'm going to start going through this book, and you can feel free to give a call anytime you want on that open phone line. This, it has a little letter from the publisher of Columbia House. What is Columbia House? I suppose that's just the publisher. It talks about Volume 1, Volume 2. Nice. Are UFOs a reality? Has our little planet Earth received visitors from outer space? Are there evidences that our attempts to communicate and theirs may already have borne fruit? Happily, you will now have a chance to decide for yourself whether these and other bizarre and extraordinary experiences and speculations belong in the realm of fantasy or truth. What's this about? That was the old record club, right? Like $20? I think it was like 5 cents for 10 albums. I don't know. What do we got here? Ron Jones says, a being that famed occultist Aleister Crowley is supposed to have been in contact with. The picture on the front of the communion. Ah! Let's see, what was the name again? Lamb. Interesting. So let's check out this book. I don't remember exactly where I got this. Where did I get it? I find it at like... Man, I don't remember, but I like it. I might have ordered it online or something. Let's take a look at what we got here. It's all blank. It's so mysterious. Out of This World. Out of This World. Out of This World. Okay, here we go. What year is this? 1976, 77, 78. I'll just pop this open and just find something to look at. The question marks above our heads. I love this design. Look at that. It's got the little UFO landing, and it even has some orbs around it. Oh, here we go. Here's a sort of description. Nobody has yet captured and inspected a flying saucer, but according to the latest scientific theories known to Earthmen, if flying saucers exist, this is what they would look like. Here's the, shows the landing and takeoff principle. That's good. Has a little TV. Another little TV. I like it. Explanation of force. Satisfying headline font. Yeah, exactly. Strange objects and scattered wreckage. Dead mice. So these are like little newspaper article type reports. And here are the various UFO types. The Adamski type. There's that guy again who was mentioned. I've never heard of him until now. Twice. He was mentioned in this book too. So this one is a cylinder-shaped winged object. This one's like a flying light bulb. And this one looks like a thing that you spin salad in. Is there a bar cart? Where's the men's room on this craft, sir? Mike Stone wants to know. So that's pretty good. You know, I should probably plan something for the ending of these episodes, but I have a few more books here that I've set aside. Here's a fun book. Suppressed Inventions and Other Discoveries. True stories of suppression, scientific cover-ups, misinformation, and brilliant breakthroughs. Oh, there's an IUD craft and a dildo craft. Oh boy. The Cold War propaganda versus the hardcore facts. Probably not any pictures in here, huh? The suppression of alternative medical therapies. The BX, the virus of cancer. So cancer is a virus, according to this. So yeah. AIDS and Ebola, where did they really come from? I don't know. The suppression of fuel savers and alternate energy sources. The god of lightning, transmission. There we go. We got a whole chapter on Tesla. Here's his experimental laboratory in Colorado Springs. You're going to find hydrochloroquine in there. I don't know what that is. All right, see you later, Rob. You got a date with an alien. Nice. Oh, here's the huge tower that he built for sending messages across the Atlantic and electricity into the atmosphere. In 1904, he was building this thing and shooting electricity into the air. Pretty crazy. I mean, I guess he was onto something, right? A lot of the stuff he did was supposedly legit. So that's an alright book. It's got not a lot of pictures. I like pictures. Here's a book that I got in person from Jim Marrs. And I've not read it yet, but it's about the $1 trillion conspiracy, how the New World Order, man-made diseases, and zombie banks are destroying America. Best-selling author of The Rise of the Fourth Reich and Rule by Secrecy. I was a big fan of Jim Marrs back in the day. Really enjoyed his stuff. So I actually met him and got this book from him, and he wrote, "Howdy, Carl. Here's what's wrong, who's to blame, and what to do about it. Best regards, Jim Marrs." Autographed copy to Mr. Carl. There's no date on it. Why didn't we get a date written on that? Well, that would have helped. So yeah, he's How to Create Zombies. Wow, that's a long chapter. Selling is the name of the game. Look at that. Of course it is. Gun and ammo sales are booming. The 3 boxes of freedom. Interesting stuff. I find his writing very interesting. He's a good writer. Now here is a book. He did pass away a few years ago. It's too bad. Interesting dude. I think he was on Coast to Coast pretty often. I liked his stuff a lot. I actually emailed with him a few times. Now this is a book that I don't remember where I got this. I think I found it on the... I just spit. I found it on the side of the road, I think, in San Francisco. And I couldn't believe that I found it. A copy of Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper from Light Technology Publishing. Light Technology Publishing. This is Behold a Pale Horse. This was a guy... William Cooper was quite paranoid and into all this conspiracy theory stuff, and he had an underground radio show that was kind of similar to Art Bell's, although he was kind of just broadcasting like apocalyptic stuff about the world ending and technology, I think. I don't recall exactly. I'm sure a lot of the contents are in here, the subjects. But he was always talking about how they're coming to get me, they're going to stop me, I don't have much time left, but I need to get this information out there. They're coming to get me soon. And wouldn't you know it, there was some dispute. I don't know where he lived, in Oklahoma or something, but there was some dispute over land or something that happened on his property. And police raided his house and killed him. Just after he was saying that. And so I somehow got a copy of his book. And I've got some references to him on some of my albums and stuff like that. Do I believe all of this stuff? I don't believe much at all. I really don't know. But it sure is interesting. Let's take a look inside Behold a Pale Horse, because this was some interesting stuff. Look at that look at that graphic, that typesetting. I love it when there's gigantic lettering. Huge titles, and then like 4 lines. Another huge title. That's like H1, and then paragraph, 4 lines. H1. Economic inductance. Application in economics. So this chapter is about silent weapons for quiet wars. Oh, what was that I just saw? There he is on a patrol boat. I guess he was in the military. Secret societies and the New World Order, treason in high places, the secret government, Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1988, HR 4079 and FEMA, the story of Jonathan May, the Protocols of the Wise Men of Zion. I've heard of this. I don't remember what it is. Does anyone know what it is? Behold a Pale Horse. U.S. Army Intelligence Connection with Satanic Church. Now, wasn't that true? Wasn't Crowley working with the Army and the Air Force? Be difficult to verify that right away. I don't know. This is his service record. William Cooper's military service record. All the documents for when he was in the Navy, when he got awards. He's got signatures and things on the forms. Administrative remarks. Wow, look at all that. UFOs in Area 51. This is a UFO seen in 1948 over Mount Rainier. Anybody here, anybody else been to Mount Rainier? I love Mount Rainier. Oh, look at that. That's an ARV right there. That's the alien reproduction vehicle. What is this doing in here? Stored at Norton Air Force Base and Edwards Air Force Base. Flies out of Area 51. And why is the drawing blacked out? Because I have a copy of this. I have a print of it. A blueprint from the artist. And he sent me one. Or sent my friend one, and he gave it to me as a gift. But I have this artist stuff. Why was he hiding his name at the time? Let's see what year this was. I don't recall. Whoa, look at that. The ideas and conclusions expressed in this work are mine alone. It is possible that one or more conclusions may be wrong. The purpose of this book is to convince you, the reader, that something is terribly wrong. It seems like a lot of people go through life with this feeling. It could just be built into our psychology that something is terribly wrong. And then we find whatever it is in our life, we attach that anxiety that something is terribly wrong to whatever's around us. And the circumstances change through life, and we continue to say something is terribly wrong. Of course, for many people, something is terribly wrong, and they're in a terrible situation. It is my hope that this work will inspire you to begin an earnest search for the truth. Your conclusions may be different, but together, maybe we can build a better world. William Cooper. Let me just look at the date here. 1991. Anybody familiar with the Disclosure Project? Anybody out there into that? That was some good stuff. Anybody watch that Washington Press Club video right before 9/11 happened? I really enjoyed that. I watched that right when it came out, right when it was available, back in 2001. It was like late August of 2001 or something that this guy from the Disclosure, what's his name? Stephen Greer, Dr. Stephen Greer. He went and tracked down like 100, 200 or something ex-military contractors and generals and all this stuff, got them all to go to the Washington Press Club at the same time to all declare that they have evidence of our government interacting with flying saucers from another world, and they hold up the evidence, the papers, and they say, I am willing to testify before Congress that this is a fact, and I have all the documents to prove it. And then 9/11 happened, and that kind of disappeared. So I don't know whatever happened with all that whole thing. But that sure was interesting at the time. We'll move into this. Check this out. This is by far the most out there thing I've ever read, this dude. Anybody familiar with David Icke? Anybody seen this book? I actually attended a all-day long workshop with this guy in San Francisco in 2002. And he was quite animated, waving his arms all around, and he had a slideshow, and he had all of the evidence. It was a lot of fun. Interesting stuff. I love to look through this stuff and find what types of claims are made. I love when he'll be like, and this is why. Let's see, what do we got? Anyway, the premise of this book is that the human race is actually being how an interdimensional race has controlled the world for thousands of years and still does. And they are actually reptiles that worship the goddess Diana. Interesting though, because that show V, that television show V, was about a bunch of reptiles who their leader was named Diana, right? Yes, looks like a screenplay for V, exactly. So check this out. Here, the pictures are good. Freemasons are the serpent cult. Shakespeare was Lord Draconis. And he's got the Freemason stuff, right? Oh, it's the Freemasons. The Set serpent cult is Satanism. Hollywood, the land of illusion. I'll go along with that. Here, oh, he's also got the three main varieties of aliens. Although they're a little different. The Mzungu. I like how he'll have like something that's triangular and be like, see? There's evidence that something is in a triangle shape, therefore it's a triangle. It's aliens. There's that George Washington statue with the Baphomet. George Bush supposedly doing the horned hands. Got Aleister Crowley in here. Bill Clinton. See, back in the day when us liberals were into conspiracy theories, we thought that all these guys were part of the conspiracy. But we especially thought he was because of his involvement in his Skull and Bones Society. Oh, what's this? This is how tiny microchips have become, and these are only the ones we are allowed to see. According to insiders, the chips are now small enough to be inserted by a hypodermic needle during vaccination programs. Michael Stone says he saw a triangular formation in the sky over the desert east of San Diego County that I was unable to explain. God save us from religion. It has served us well, this myth of Christ. Pope Leo X, Babylon to Rome, Anunnaki. We're getting into that. See if there are any more pictures. No more pictures. There is no spoon. He kind of is stealing some. The key point in Bill Hicks' superb encapsulation of hidden truth is, we are the imagination of ourselves. So, these reptiles are also supposedly emitting various frequencies that control us. And they're prepping us for a massive human sacrifice and child molestation or something. I don't know. And there he is. That's the dude. He's always had a mullet. I think he was like an actor or something before this. You may look around and think what you see is real, but in truth, you are living in an illusion designed to keep you in a mental, emotional, and spiritual prison cell. Shapeshifters, Dragon Queens, Atlantis Revisited, Blood Brothers, Unholy Alliance, Demons, Satanism and Christian, Gatekeepers, Illuminati, Rothschild and Hitler. Yeah. And we'll just finish up, like for 10,000 bits you can make Carl say the alphabet. Carl needs to make things you can redeem them for. Interesting challenge. I don't know what that is. What? Why did that pop up? I don't know how to make that go away. What was that? Carl, make some things. I have points. There are things that are there by default. Click on the points. What does it mean? Anyway, one last book we're going to check out today, just briefly. This is The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall. An encyclopedic outline of Masonic, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, and Rosicrucian symbolical philosophy. This guy was, I believe he was he was a legit Freemason. I think he was actually a Freemason. And he did a lot of writing on Freemasonry. This is from 2011. And we've got the life and teachings of Thoth Hermes Trismegistus, the initiation of the pyramid, Isis, the virgin of the world, the wonders of antiquity, Pythagorean mathematics, the Hiramic legend, the Pythagorean theory of music and color, the ancient mysteries and secret societies which have influenced modern Masonic symbolism. So, I don't know who outlined all this, the whole book, but somebody outlined a lot of it right there. Let's just highlight the whole thing. This guy's writing is very flowery. Like, let's take a look. While Hermes still walked the earth with men, he entrusted to his chosen successors the sacred Book of Thoth. This work contained the secret processes by which the regeneration of humanity was to be accomplished, and also served as the key to his other writings. Animals. The lion is the king of the animal family, and like the head of each kingdom is sacred to the sun, whose rays are symbolized by the lion's shaggy mane. The allegories perpetuated by the mysteries, such as the one to the effect that the lion opens the secret book, signify that the solar power opens the seed pods, releasing the spiritual life within. There was also a curious belief among the ancients that the lion sleeps with his eyes open. The yoni and the phallus were worshipped by nearly all ancient peoples as appropriate symbols of God's creative power. The Garden of Eden, the Ark, the Gate of the Temple, the Veil of the Mysteries, etc. Cultus Arborum, Modus Operandi. For the invocation of spirits, the following condensed extract from the ancient manuscript is reproduced herewith as representative of the ritualism of ceremonial magic. Opening prayer. Omnipotent and eternal God, who hath ordained, like you can see, this is like, thou art welcome, noble spirit. What is thy name? And it's all this stuff. It's the gnomes. It even talks about the gnomes. Anyway, fun stuff to check out. And that's the end of today's book collection. Book selection from the collection. And I am probably going to be wrapping up here in just a minute. If anyone else wants to make a quick call in and say hi. If you've been too shy to call in until now, you are welcome to. Take a final call, and then we'll get out of here. But we'll see what anybody else is saying in the chat. We'll say hi to everyone. Mike Stone says, what do all of these channel points I seem to be getting down here? Anyone? Carl will make some things. I have points. Square butthole. What? Richard Running Man. I don't know what that was in reference to, but because it was a while back. But thank you for remembering that song. I will save them. Just time-based, or if you subscribe, if he's in the stream. Michael Stone posted he redeemed 100 points, and here's what I use points for, but if Carl makes some emotes, I can buy some. This is much more fulfilling than listening to the news while I work. Okay, if anyone wants to dial in and just have a last little chat, go ahead and dial that number and I'll bring you in, and then we're going to sign off. And I'll give you 3 minutes. 3 minutes to call in. Well, this was a fun format. It's a little different than sitting here with a guitar. And of course, I felt nervous at first. I was really nervous about all this stuff working. Of being able to take calls. Feel free to call in if you haven't. Say hi. We don't have to talk a lot. We can just talk a little bit. If anyone has any thoughts, anyone wants to tell me their experience, anybody wants to know about weird science. Oh, look at that. We're getting maybe our last call of the day. Call number 3. Let's take it. Hello, you are on with Carl King. How may I help you?
Hello, this is Michael Stone.
Oh, hey, Michael Stone. That's such a coincidence. I was just in a chat with Michael Stone.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah, what's going on over there? I know what's going on over there mostly, but what would you like to talk about?
I wanted to share my story about the unidentified formation that I saw in the desert because it seems pertinent to the subject matter.
Okay, let's hear your story. I'm going to turn down this music a little bit so we can hear you. And go ahead.
This was probably the early 90s. I was with my soon-to-be wife, and well, actually, that would have been later 90s. So, with my soon-to-be wife and some friends out in the desert.
Which desert was this?
The night sky. This would be just east of San Diego County. So I want to say Ocotillo Wells, out in that area. But we were up still in the mountains, looking over the desert, and just enjoying a small campfire and some beers. Mm-hmm. So we were altered. So that's
you were altered by beer?
Yes.
Okay, just beer.
And probably other substances.
Probably
as well.
others. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
But so enjoying the night sky and a nice full moon out there, and I noticed at one point that there was what looked like 3 stars that were in one position, and a few minutes later they were in another position. Mm-hmm. Still in a triangular formation, but slowly moving towards the moon.
Oh.
And
like they were moving up towards the moon?
No, they were moving across.
Across, okay.
Let's say if I had my position correct, I would say they would be moving in a southern direction.
Okay.
So it looked like a perfectly formed triangle, just 3 lights, and they just looked about the brightness of stars, but all even. And as they got closer to the moon, I asked everybody else if they were seeing these moving as well. Mm-hmm. And everybody else could see them. So we were then all watching them pretty closely, and as we're looking, the formation looked like it was either 3 crafts in a flying formation, or B, a single craft in a triangular shape. But given the size and the orientation of it, it seemed like it would be too close to not be making any sound if it was a singular craft, and if it was 3 crafts flying in formation, I wouldn't expect them to stay in a perfect triangle the whole way. But of course, that's that's all very unscientific and just observational.
Mm-hmm.
But as it got closer to the moon, all 3 lights just disappeared, and that was the entirety of the sighting. So I have no idea what it was.
Did they move together, or did they just blink out?
They just disappeared as they got close to the sun. I wouldn't say that it blinked. They just were no longer visible. It was as if it had either gone behind the moon, or had just vaporized, or had been just simply a group hallucination.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, never could figure out a valid explanation for that one. But
maybe this is an appropriate time to also share with you my sighting.
Yes. I would like to hear that very much.
Did I don't want to cut you off, though. Is that the end of the story with that one? Is that your sighting?
No, that's it. Yeah.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much doesn't go any farther than that.
Okay. Well, if you want to stay on for a moment, I'll talk to you at the same time I'm talking to everyone and tell my sighting. One of my sightings.
All right.
2002. This is what led me to speak to Mufon. I was driving on the interstate south in Florida on I-75. I was listening to Rollins Band at the time.
Uh-huh.
I didn't see any other cars on the road. It was nighttime. It was maybe around 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. or something. And I was somewhere near Laurel or Osprey. And listening to Rollins Band. My dog was in the car. I'm driving along, enjoying myself, listening to some music. And out of the corner of my eye, I think that I see a shooting star. And I have the thought, like, oh, it's a shooting star. If I even try to turn to look, it'll be gone already. But hey, shooting star, cool. It's over there. But then I realize it's not. It's staying there. Wait a minute. Why is it? Okay. So I turn and I look, and I see it out of my left side window as I'm driving. And it is bright green, like lightsaber, like Luke's lightsaber in Return of the Jedi. Like neon green, bright glowing Steve Vai green. And
very interesting.
It's just a glowing light, and it is moving extremely fast for it being an object that was low enough in our atmosphere to see it over the trees. Like it looked like it was flying over the trees off in the distance, maybe a mile away.
Really?
And it was going perfectly straight, as if it was really like a jet or something. Almost as if it was, you know, when you would go to the old laser light shows? And it looked like a laser pointer that was being guided on a stiff, like mechanical track, like robotic.
Interesting.
It looked completely unnatural, and it immediately scared the shit out of me, because I had no idea what it was or what I was looking at, and my mind started racing to try to explain it. And I immediately thought, oh my God, it's a fighter jet crashing. There's a military jet crashing, and oh my God, and I had this panic, and I thought, no wait, that doesn't make any sense. Like why would that be happening? And then I thought, oh no, it must be a missile. We're going to war. There's a nuclear war happening right now. And my heart was racing, and I was panicking to try to make sense of what this thing was. And I followed it with my eyes, and it went so far and so fast that it zoomed past my car on the horizon, out in front of the windshield, past the post that's on the side, right? So I'm now watching it outside the windshield, and it stopped, and then went like kind of curved and went down behind the trees. And it just freaked me the hell out. I started calling people, and I called my stepdad, and I asked him, can you turn on the news? Because something crazy just happened. I just saw something, and I don't know what's happening. I think we're at war or something like that. Or thinking it was a missile or a jet crashing. Have you heard anything about this? What's going on? I don't know what's going on. And my heart was racing, and I just felt like something is totally wrong here. This is very disturbing. And just the rest of the evening, my mind was just in a panic. And I was actually trying to go on the way to a band practice, and I just couldn't focus. And I just told my friend, man, I'm sorry, but I can't think. This is just so disturbing, what I just saw. It was upsetting on a deep level. And so that was my sighting, and that's why I called these guys and had them come and investigate and interview me.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that would be somewhat upsetting when you see something that is so inexplicable to you. It's difficult to wrap your head around it.
Yeah. Something about it did not feel normal at all. I just was so it's just really upset. I think I even started crying. Like it bothered me so much that I saw this. I immediately started crying. That's another detail of it that I left out.
My goodness.
So, there's how old was I? 25 or so. And there I am crying driving in the car because I saw a light in the sky. I don't know.
Well, there are worse things to cry about.
Sure. Let's see. What's Higgins say here? Carl, you have to ask him whether he knows that one guy.
Do you mean that one guy, the streaming performer? Because that guy is pretty entertaining.
Oh, I have to ask Mike Stone if he knows. There was a funny thing in here. The guy's name, right? I have to ask. There's a required question, right, where you interview people. Do you remember this?
Oh, that, yeah.
Have you ever heard of George Adamski?
No, I have not.
Okay, I forgot to ask that. That's important.
But since he got me on the subject, there is a streaming performer that goes by the name That One Guy. And
maybe that's him. Maybe that's what he's up to now.
He could be, yeah. He is slightly alien-ish.
Higgins is really
Very strange.
upset now. Higgins is really angry that I'm not following the Mufon procedure.
Damn it, Carl.
Spizik says green means copper is present, right? Yes, Higgins
Yeah,
says.
I would say so, yeah. So it was a copper-fired engine.
It was powered by pennies, which is why Spotify is also green.
Well, I didn't put that together.
They're over there filing down pennies and mailing you pieces of pennies when they stream your song.
Sons of bitches.
How small can we cut up a penny and divide it amongst all of the musicians? That's what they're trying to figure out.
Infinitely small.
Infinitely small, like the guy in the book who just kept shrinking. It's like music royalties. They keep going smaller and smaller, and they fall into outer space.
Oh, yes.
Well, okay, everybody. That's the end of my show today. This has been Out of This World with Carl King. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and thanks for the new subscribers. That was nice. I saw that Higgins joined. Thanks, Spizik, as always. Spizik has been helping me behind the scenes. Mike Stone's always helping me. Richard Running Man popped in, and so did Zeke Pystrup. That was fun. And who else have we got? Rob Jones was here for a while. Who was Muscat Grape is one of my favorites ever. I like that little synth tone. All right, well, I'm going to head out, and thanks a lot. And I'll be back tomorrow, and we're going to do video call-ins with some special guests I have planned for my birthday stream. It's going to be a live birthday party, and we're going to take a look at some other stuff here on the desk. So thanks, everyone, for joining us. Tomorrow at noon, I'll be here again with a new show. All right, goodbye.